Hey there. Welcome to the Joyful Rebels podcast. We've got Donna and Claire here, and as always, super excited that y'all are joining us. Today, we've got a topic that we are excited to get into, how we think about regret.
Ooh.
And this topic actually pretty naturally came to us after last week's episode, which is how we think about overthinking. And so, as I said last week, raise your hand if you consider yourself an overthinker. And I am definitely in that boat. So, I just wanted to share my experience from the past week. Uh, my big takeaway was, what am I going to do when I become aware of the overthinking? And it really shows up for me before bed. And so I mentioned this last week, but I am just a huge proponent of box breathing. And so that's what I went with. When I am laying in bed and I want to interrupt my thought cycles, I started with the box breathing. And as a really quick reminder, if you didn't catch our episode on Time to Meditate from season 1, you think of a box has 4 equal sides. So that's what you do with your breath. You inhale for, let's say, a count of 4. You hold your breath at the top for a count of 4. Exhale for that count of 4. And then you hold it at the bottom for a count of 4. And that's all you do. You do a couple rounds of it. And for me personally, and I think this might be the 4th or 5th time I brought up this breathing exercise on the podcast, but I'm going to say it gets my mind thinking about that, right? So mindfulness, it brings me to the present moment. So I don't have that brain space to be then thinking about the issues that were keeping me up. And not only that, but you've got some stimulation of the vagus nerve going on. So, like physiologically, by doing that breathing practice, you're calming yourself down. So, definitely 10 out of 10 recommend doing that before bed if you find yourself overthinking or you can't sleep. But that is a tool that I found to be really helpful this past week. And so, Mom, I was wondering what your reflection is on the topic of overthinking then.
Well, I love that when we get a chance to review from last week and discuss what we're going to do this week, that the conversations are always really fun and they're usually really diverse. And this is going to be one of the times that it feels kind of diverse. Like I love box breathing and I appreciate how pranayama in general, yogic breathing is such a great focal point. And you're right, it pulls your attention elsewhere and it's available. It's available. And I love that. And it's not that I don't do that, but here's the good news, guys, that I've always been I'm a time person. So if I start to overthink about something, it started when I used to teach classes and I finished teaching and afterward I would think about it, what went well, what could I have done better? And I just keep thinking about it. So I gave myself 30 minutes. And I think we talked about that earlier. I have a 30-minute rule. I think about it 30 minutes. Usually that's the drive home. And then I'm like, I'm done. Like, there's no more productivity in that thinking. Now it's just going around the same mulberry bush. But now what I've realized is that for overthinking, that 30-minute timeline or, what I'm going to give myself to just sit and indulge in the overthinking or the processing has become habit. So I don't even have to say I'm going to do 30 minutes, clock starts now, or 15 minutes, clock starts now. I just automatically sit in it for a little bit and then I'm done. So that's not a braggy point. What I want to be able to share is that these things that seem sometimes insurmountable, you put a hack or a behavior in place because this is actionable self-care. That when you do that, that sometimes you have 2 or 3 new things that you're juggling and it feels like you're like, what am I doing now? I have a new skill I'm learning. And for me, it always feels super clunky because it's not routine. I haven't got it ingrained in my day, my time, or my body, whatever the behavior is. This is one I have. And so just so you know that the things that you're working on right now that you have to remind yourself of will one day with a little bit of time, it doesn't even have to be that long, will become your habit. And you don't have to think about it so much. So that opens up more bandwidth for then to look at another area of your life that you want to review, celebrate, or refine. So this is the game. It's like a chess game, and you're just moving the pieces around and it's not like it's never ending whack-a-mole of issues. That's not it at all. It's that this is fun. You can go to things that don't really fit in your life. You don't love it so much and you can put your attention on that and then that one goes away. And then you go put your attention on another one and then you get a chance to solve those little puzzles. So know that that's coming. And take a moment right now and think, everybody that's listening, whether you're like YouTubing it right now or you're listening in real time, like, what are some of the things that we talk about and you shake your head and you go, oh, no, I have that one. That one's good. take the time to celebrate. Don't just let that drive by. Go, oh, I did put work in. I did put it in my mind's eye to be really aware and present with it. And look, it's taken less bandwidth. The noise in my head is, the volume is reduced. And now I get a chance to pick my head up and look elsewhere. So good job. Yay for us. We'll start with a win.
Yay,
Yay.
yay. You know, that's really encouraging and empowering to hear, especially because a lot of these topics that come up feel really fresh to me because they're things I want to be working on. And then to talk to you and see you, who maybe it's just been something that you've been shining the light on for longer and you've been practicing, and to just see like this success story, I would say that, hey, again, like you said, once you've been working on something, it's not as hard to do it anymore, right? You have that bandwidth to look elsewhere. So
Mhm.
very cool. I love that. And I will say in the past, my overthinking has been what I would describe as more prevalent and worse than it is now. So it is, once you've got that awareness and you're working on it, like very cool. So again, yay, starting off with the win.
Yay. Yay, us.
And now, okay. So this week's topic, how we think about regret. And how I wanted to start off this topic is to bring in Brene Brown. So I've got this book in front of me called Atlas of the Heart, if any of y'all have read it. And it reads more like a dictionary of emotions. So it's pretty interesting here. Brene actually, she says from 2013 to 2014, she had over 60,000 people that were enrolled in a course where they were trying to identify the different emotions, because really there are so many. And even when we think of regret, there are so many that kind of lump in there, one being disappointment or shame or guilt. And so she parses out regret as it's when we're unhappy with the outcome. It wasn't what we wanted or counted on or thought would happen. And we think that that outcome was caused by our decisions or our actions. So it's a little bit different than if we're disappointed in something, right? We didn't like how something turned out, but on that feels a little bit more external. It wasn't because of us. With regret, we're feeling it was because of something we did or didn't do. And so a lot of the times that can be, actually the biggest driver of regret is people saying that, I did something that felt like it went against my values or my beliefs or who I am as a person. So when we do an action that goes against who we are, we tend to feel regret about that. Um, but another powerful one is inaction. And actually, we'll talk about this a couple different times. But when we bring in a temporal or a time related angle on this, is in the short term, we might feel regret about something that we did, an action we took. But in the long term, the majority of regret tends to be things that we didn't do. So opportunities that we didn't take. And so you've got that angle with it as well. So regret, we're not happy with something that happened, but how can this be a positive? Well, we can use regret, right? We can use something that we're maybe not, we're describing as a negative. We're not feeling good about something and we think it's our fault because of an action we took or didn't take. But we can actually use regret then to have more courage, to lead us towards more wisdom. And one more quote from Brene: sometimes the most uncomfortable learning is the most powerful. And so sometimes we do, instead of wanting, like, regret is something that we probably don't want to feel, right? We'll just throw that out there. And so what the tendency might be to sweep it under a rug, to go away, turn away from it, run away from it. And so instead, today we're going to talk about, using regret as a positive and what you can do then when you're noticing that you're feeling regret, because there are things that we can do about it. And you might notice some similarities to the episode from last week talking about overthinking, because regret does show up that way a lot. We are ruminating, right? Focusing the same thoughts over and over about something that we did, again, an action that we took or didn't take. So you might hear some of the similar ways to deal with it. But again, the intention is a little bit different. So familiarity, good. And how you're going to use it is personal and it's important. So regret, how can we use it as a positive? We can use it to motivate us. We can use it to increase our gratitude, and we can use it for more awareness. So again, we're talking about awareness here. What do we do when we start noticing that we have regret? Because again, we're shining a light on it. We're going to let ourselves feel it. And Mom, what's one of the first things that we can do then if we notice that we are feeling regret? What's something that we can do?
Yeah, I'll get to that in just a second, but I really like what you said about long and short game on that, because I think it bears bringing up that I think as in Western culture, we're not super good at soothing ourselves. So we feel something in the short run and we want to make it go away. And that's just like we have iPhones, we have, our phones, we have things to distract us that can pick up. We have substances that we want to take. We have Netflix series that we can zone out to. So there's setup of behaviors that can be a barrier, but not insurmountable for us to just sit in regret for a bit to even get ability to feel it, because then that can actually be the pilot lighter to work through it in the short term and the long term. Because if we just try to get rid of it, then we're missing an opportunity. So to your earlier point about some of the, I don't have the exact wording, but the hard lesson or something that's really uncomfortable really can bring about the greatest wisdom. I think this is a great opportunity here, because who hasn't had regrets where you're like, oh, I should have done that, or I did that and I can't believe I did that. Usually, again, you cross that line of that is not who I am. But what I love about that is that I kind of figure I'm on my life's path and I'm like in a bowling alley. I've got bumpers on either side. And when I cross, if I cross that line, I just went out the lane. Like I went out and I went into the next lane. Okay, well, I know where it is now. And I'd rather know where it is than not know and keep guessing. So all of these adventures that we're on, all these data points that we get, give us information to know who we are. Then we can deal with it. Unknown is really tough. Known, a little bit easier. So I don't think any of it's bad. And when I shift it to that, then I'm like, okay, what does this look like then? So there are ways that if we feel this regret, whether it's something we did or didn't do, there's a way that we can start to shift it and have it work for us. And one of them is to spend some time and be of service. And that can mean a lot of different things. I mean, that could mean that you're doing something where you're at your kid's school and you're the reading parent for the day, or the person, that's taking your time out and doing something for someone else. It could be more formal. Could be that you actually are volunteering. There's plenty of information that's out there. And if you're a time-strapped person, which I'm guess the majority of us are, that may feel like, oh, I can't not hear about spending time doing that. I'm guessing that there's something that we could do that doesn't take a huge amount of time, that has some ease. But when you're doing something for somebody, like, that shifts your focus. That allows this compassion to flood in, because you're not just in your own little world there. And I like the examples which seem like throwaways, but how many of you guys that are listening, you're nice to the cashiers and your servers and the people that you come in contact with during your day. And I know I have not always been. Sometimes my eyes are down and I'm just going through my life. But when I pick my head up and I'm like, how's it going today? It cost me $0. I just think that kind of connection and being friendly to somebody can be an act of service. I'm going to hold the door open. I'm going to let somebody take this spot that's closer to the front because I don't need it today. And it doesn't mean you have to go share it and say, I just did that for you. I just going to try to live my life and find those ways, because it shifts my attention. And I need my attention shifted, because otherwise I can go down my own rabbit hole of just thinking about myself and my own stuff. And that starts that spiral. So for me, that merry-go-round, or that spiral of overthinking, possibly to ruminating, I'm going to do my best not to step on it. I'm going to just try and see that it's there. I got it, but oftentimes I can get myself either avoid it or get myself out of it. And that's an action. Notice that's an action. I'm going to do something for somebody else. I'm going to give of my time, maybe, or of a service or something. And it doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to be like a missionary going to a different country. You can do it in your own backyard, but something where you can be of service. And that can be to yourself too. Like maybe you take 30 minutes and you go read something for a while, go take a break. That can happen too, instead of scrolling. You know what I'm saying? So that's one way, be of service. I didn't mean to go so long on that, but I'm finding if you're in a season where you've got a little bit more time, that'd be a good place to spend your time. If you're somebody right now that's got a bunch of littles and you're like, I don't have a bunch of time to do that, totally get that. Know that's on the horizon. and is available to you so you can look and see if opportunities come your way, be open to it, because you could find that there's something that you can do. But there is something, and this is going to be no surprise, and I'm going to talk about it, but let's talk about exercise for just a second. Can't help not. I think it is one of the great neutralizers ever. It is a mood modulator. I say that over and over again. I'm going to have a t-shirt with written on there. But what I have come to learn is in so many different ways how exercise is one way that you can help yourself shift your mindset out of regret. Here's why. There's a very much a physiological base that as soon as you start working out, your world, you don't even see the periphery. Next time you go do something, whether it's a walk outside or you're in a fitness class or you're riding a bike or whatever, when you start out and you're just warming up and you're working at a lower intensity, you can see the world. You can hear conversations further away. You can notice things of details of people that are further away from you. When you start working harder and you're breathing heavier or you're doing something that's got a complex move, your body comes in and your focus gets tighter. It gets smaller. And that's a safety mechanism. That's because now you're doing things that your body's like, it's going to help you out. It's your friend. So if my body is all dialed in and I'm working, I'm not worried about the periphery and things on the outside of my life. I'm not worried about outside conversations. I'm worried about what's happening right here, right now. And I'm not getting into all the muck of all the things that can feel complicated to me because I have given my body and my physiology a job.
Mm.
And I love and that's everybody. Everybody winds up going in and having that focus, which is why you'll notice that really great coaches don't do all the workouts with you. They want to stay awake and alert so they can see and coach and be with you, yoga teachers too. Because if they're doing every single move that you're doing, they're caring about themselves. Now, don't write me and be like all mad at me if you're a teacher because you do stuff with your class. I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. I'm just suggesting that in order to that the beautiful part of our bodies and our brains is that we're connected, and it's easy for us to get distracted. One of the easiest ways to come back and be present is to breathe, to Claire's earlier point. That's available. That's a physiological function. The other one is to start increasing that breath through exercise. Then your brain gets on board even more. So let's not leave these tools on the table. And I'll have one more thing on that, because when I see clients that even people that are in the fitness industry, we still need to review this in each chapter of your life. Are you doing things that you love? And there's people that used to be athletes that aren't anymore. Like, this is a fluid thing. So just know that today you could start doing something and it could change your life. Like, that is something that is a table stakes for me. That from coaching standpoint, that is a table stakes, because if you're not moving, you automatically are going to be overthinking, at least to some degree. I know I'm talking in generalizations, but we're going to try to overthink our way out of issues or behaviors. I don't think it works that way. I haven't found that to be true. And the easier and the quickest way to change your behavior is to have action with it. And most often that means that there's some exercise in there. So that was soapboxy, and I didn't mean that, but I really feel passionately about that. So if you don't identify with being somebody who exercises or moves and you're like, feel like it's too late, it's not too late.